International shipping sucks, and for a whole bunch of reasons we're going to get into. Have you ever wondered why your favorite retailer just simply won't ship to you? You ever thought to yourself, well, surely they're just leaving free money on the table. Why would they do that? Well, it turns out the answer is a little bit more complicated than just putting your desired product in a box and putting your address on it. With the events of COVID this year particularly, things have got a little squiffy, to say the least. So join me as we go into the challenges that I face with my company and many other companies are facing around the world. Bear in mind that my perspectives of that of someone in the UK trying to ship abroad. I know the UK has its own set of issues, especially with Brexit occurring at the end of this year, but I feel that a lot of this information probably is going to ring true to a lot of companies around the world. And although this might not apply to everyone, the vast majority of people trying to do international parcels, it's going to apply. There might be a few exceptions, like the big guns like Amazon, for instance. They have their own ships, basically, sending their stock where they want it, when they want it. But I'm sure they are probably facing their own set of issues, though they're probably a bit better equipped to deal with it. One of the biggest complaints that we get at Pinbox, especially with our international customers, is why does it cost so much to ship my product? And we get it. Our product's tiny. It weighs less than 100 grams, and its footprint overall is pretty small. Even by the time we account for the duck that we throw in, it's still a very small parcel that doesn't weigh a lot. And it raises the question, well, why does it cost so much to ship it? And the reason is simple. That's what it costs us. We don't like it as much as anyone else. And recently we had our shipping costs go up an extortionate amount. The new quote that we got through was up to 50% higher than what we were paying previously. That's a massive jump. Now, some companies will be able to offset their shipping costs in different ways. If you buy an item of clothing and it's £100 and it only costs £20 to make that item of clothing, then you could maybe reasonably expect that the retailer would go, hey, well, we can kind of afford that £15 shipping charge and not have to charge it to our customers. And that makes sense for that product. With us, however, it gets a little more complicated. See, our products are only $9.99 at retail, a price that is cheap. So cheap that we have trouble selling our stock wholesale because the margins just aren't high enough for retailers and other sellers. There isn't a lot we can do about that. We've already negotiated our terms with our manufacturers, and for the quality that they produce, we're happy paying it. We've seen some shoddy work in the past, and we've worked with many different pin suppliers. Sometimes it's definitely the case of you get what you pay for. So because of that, we can't really absorb too much of a cost. By the time we cover the basic overheads of molds and shipping, taxes, imports, manufacturing, payment charges from Shopify, PayPal, or however else you decide to pay, it becomes a case that there really isn't a lot left. And obviously we want to be able to put that into more products and expand what we do. The reason that our releases are quite stagnated is simply because we don't have the money to be going, oh hey, well here's another 20 pins. It takes time to develop these things from when you can put that money in, and having a limited profit margin on each of them makes it harder. So we aren't left with much of a choice but to charge the shipping that it costs us, and those rates are getting stupid. There's no two ways around it. Now, we've had many people ask, well, why don't you just send it standard, not tracked? Okay, that's an option. But the problem is now is that standard untracked parcels don't actually go cheap. If you go on the Royal Mail website, you're looking about over £7. Just send a small parcel not tracked. And a lot of the time, that's going to take a while. Like 42 days. Who wants to wait 42 days? We have looked everywhere. We have spoken to every courier that a Google search can provide. I've spoken to integrations teams. I've spoken to fulfillment centers. I've spoken directly with carriers. It's rough. And when Royal Mail's quotes are between 12, 15, 17 pounds just to send a small parcel tracked, it's rough. Track shipping isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. The problem is with track shipping is it kind of goes against itself in that sense. If you ever had a parcel and you've tracked the shipping and it says, oh hey, we've loaded it onto a van, or hey, it's on its way to the next depot, and then 2 days pass and nothing's happened. Well, there could be a number of reasons for that. It could be that it's still on the van. For some reason, the van never got moved. Maybe the guy called in sick that day. We don't know. Or maybe it never got scanned in at the other end, which personally I find is the more usual reason. But sometimes things get silly and the tracking doesn't update for ages. And we're finding this with our most recent fulfillment center, that we've got a lot of parcels that are just in limbo. And you go, hey, well, surely that's when you get in touch with the company and say, hey, look, this hasn't moved for 20 days. Like, clearly something's gone on, look into it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. These companies aren't interested. And you would think that the fact that they offer a track service would kind of mean otherwise. But it doesn't. COVID's impact has been far-reaching around the world. And I won't argue that. The problem is, these couriers, they're still selling services the same way that they were before COVID, knowing full well that it's not going to happen. For instance, in the UK, Royal Mail, who's our main local delivery, they have a service called Sign4. It used to be the case that you would buy the service to get proof that your parcel had been delivered. The idea being a signature would be done by the recipient and there wouldn't be any questions over whether or not it had been received by them. That service, you can still buy today. Yeah, if the rest of the world's anything like us, signing for stuff isn't really a thing anymore. But Royal Mail, they haven't updated anything. They still sell it as a Sign4 service and then put a little asterisk next to it and go, oh hey, by the way, we won't be taking a signature. Which kind of doesn't make sense. I think couriers around the world are struggling. But they're struggling for the wrong reasons, and they're not being transparent about it. And by extension, it makes it difficult for any company that's doing any sort of shipping being transparent as well. The track system is flawed. It should always just have an update. If a parcel's going on a boat, it should be easy to find out what boat it is and when it docked. And if it docked and that parcel wasn't taken off, then clearly there's a problem. Either an investigation needs to be opened or compensation. Which leads me on to my next point. Compensation. Couriers do not want to pay for lost parcels. They will do anything in their power to get out of it. And it's something that we're facing now, where we've had parcels that have clearly gone missing and they're just saying, oh no, they're just in transit. Well, how? Where is it? And they can never answer it. It's frustrating because then we have customers contacting us, and rightfully so. They bought a product. They just want it delivered. I get that. And when the idea of a track service is to stop this exact uncertainty, it's laughable. This video may come across as a bit ranty, and to be honest, that's because it is. It's frustrating for a company to basically sell you a service that isn't being fulfilled, and there's not a lot you can do about it. And it's not just the actual shipping of the item either. It's got to be packaged, and packaged well, especially if it's going internationally. Some of the parcels we've sent out have turned up pretty bad on the other end. but they were okay. And that's because they were packaged well. And good packaging costs money. Last night I was preparing for our stock to come back here to fulfill in-house, and I ordered a bunch of packing materials. Turns out boxes are really expensive. For the sizes we needed, I could only find them for about 40p each. And for the bigger boxes, closer to 75. And that's not including the packaging inside the box to keep the item secure, the labels. Then there's also the time involved. Packing and shipping orders isn't a quick endeavor unless you've got a really dedicated setup. And small companies don't. They aren't fulfillment centers. They haven't got everything just tied into APIs left, right, and center. Sure, you'll have a few. Royal Mail offer an API for Shopify and it kind of works. But the process is still pretty long-winded. And as far as I can tell, there's no real way of shortening that. We did find one company that has pretty competitive rates to a lot of main countries. It's not every country, but it's better than nothing. And when you see the price difference, yeah, it's substantial. So we'll be using them. Not only is it much cheaper than Royal Mail or any alternative that we can find, but it comes with compensation included if parcels do go missing, though the exact scenario for that, I need to iron out with them. And it's tracked all the way through. And considering it's a service that is usually cheaper than what Royal Mail offers for a non-tracked service, I'll take it. There's no harm in having a tracked service, just sometimes it doesn't do what it says on the tin. There is a caveat though. The problem is that you can't just drop it off at your local convenience store. They have a number of depots located around the UK, and unfortunately, we don't live near to one. The closest one's about a 50-minute drive, both ways. And that's not something I can reasonably be expected to do every day. One, because of time, two, because of money of fuel, and three, because it's just not a sustainable solution to the problem. However, we can forward them on using another shipping company. So we could collate a bunch of parcels, put them in one big box, and send that box to them, at which point they would process it and get it shipped out from there. So it's kind of like it's going to a hub. Thing is, outside of product launches, sales could be slim. And for that reason, we're looking at the prospect of having staggered deliveries. This way, it's the best of both worlds. It's not costing us a fortune to get it to this shipping center, but it's also not taking forever for you to actually get your product. We're looking at doing weekly shipments to any countries that we would be using this service for. We don't have exact details of every country yet. That's going to take a lot of time to kind of do the research into and create a definitive list, especially on the back end of Shopify. But this is where we're headed. We're working really hard to bring everything back online as soon as we can. But I thought it would be nice to share some information with you about what we've been doing and why everything is what it is. Thanks for tuning in.